And here I am with Nico from Kardashev, which literally nearly a year to the day since we last spoke, when you released Bearing Shadows.
Oh my gosh, has it been all like, dude, I can't believe it's like a year to the day. That's amazing. Are we gonna have an anniversary soon? Are we gonna like have to keep this up annually?
I sent you flowers. Did you get them?
I did, but they were in the form of pastries. They came as a bunch of donuts. So hopefully that's okay.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. You're amazing.
And I just want to say thank you for one, for joining me, but two, for nipping off and getting arguably my favorite hat of all time on.
Oh, no problem. I had to go get it for you. You know, I wish I could just send it to you. Just like, here, you have this hat, but it stinks. So I'm gonna have to get you a new one.
That's
Sorry
fine.
about that.
A new one would be fine. That's fine. Thanks very much.
Okay. Perfect. No problem.
So anyway, like, a year ago we spoke after the release of Bearing Shadows, which was phenomenal. We spoke about that. And now here we are. And actually at that point as well, we were saying like, Nico, what's going on with new material? And you were like, well, we can't tell you, blah, blah, blah. And here we are now with the release of Liminal Rite, which came out last Friday.
Yeah. And, oh yeah, today makes a week. I got to send emails. Yes. It's been a whole week, dude. Dude, it feels like it's been a month. I'll be honest. It's like every day is so much stuff. We were just telling you right before you started, I've got 3 other interviews today, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so busy. It's crazy. I love it.
Well, I'm going to come on to that now, actually, because I was going to come on to it later. But for me, when Bearing Shadows was released, the socials were out there and it was busy enough. The release of Liminal Rite, it seems to have absolutely exploded this album. Do you feel that way as well?
I do. I think I can kind of put my finger on why, but the reception has been very good. I haven't seen a bad score yet, so I'm like waiting. I'm like cliffhanger, like, oh god, the bad ones are coming in. I know it, you know.
But we haven't done ours yet, so just
that's a good point. Yeah, just send it right to the bottom.
But like, I mean, Bearing Shadows was re-released through Metal Blade at the time, and Metal Blade is one of the biggest labels in metal. But I just, for this time round, there is certainly a lot more traction on this album. I mean, I'm looking on Twitter, and am I right in saying you run the Twitter account for the band, Nico?
Yeah, I run all band accounts. If you see it online, it's me.
But so, I mean, I see you interacting, like retweeting, all these people liking. It's just absolutely kicked off. And okay, I'll give you my unofficial rating now before me and Venny break. But Jesus Christ, this album, Nico, is unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, I still play Bearing Shadows like probably once a month, you know, maybe twice a month. You know, I absolutely adored that album. When we first got the album, it was from Andy Turner through Metal Blade, who sent us, and we discovered it, and we were like, wow. And then went back and listened to like the Almanac, etc., etc. But Jesus, like this, honestly, Nico, for me, this is a huge leap into what this album is. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful, man. Like, you must be absolutely delighted with this.
I mean, I'm delighted to hear people's reactions like that. Thank you so much. I listen back to it, and like, you know, as a creator, you see a lot of the flaws, you see a lot of the compromises that you might have had to make, but like hearing people just accept it for how it is and not how I thought it should have been, as an example, it was blowing my mind. Every other day, Sean or Mark or Alex or I were sending each other a new review or a new beautiful, just a picture of like the vinyl on someone's cabinet, and it's incredible. So I'm just full of gratitude.
and rightly so. Like, I've seen like my best mate, Lloyd, I got him onto you guys when he listened to Bearing Shadows, and he has been non-stop listening to Liminal Rite, like, and he's been, I was texting today saying, oh, I'm speaking to Nico later. He was like, you're so lucky. And I was like, but I was like, no, I think you find Nico's the lucky one getting a chat to me. But anyway,
there you go. I agree with that one, actually.
But this really is just, and we were speaking before we came on, Nico, about this year in music and what's been released, like the Wild Run album to start the year, Amorphous, Septic Flesh. This album is 100% going to be on a load of people's end of year lists. When you were writing this album And when you had, I don't know whether it was before it was mixed and mastered or after, did you realize how good an album you'd made?
I'm gonna just say it. No, but you know who did? Our bass player Alex and our drummer Sean. We all had to take time to step away from the composition process because you're always, you're festering, right? You're looking at the details and you're like, oh, I hit an open string here accidentally, or Sean's like, oh, there's a ghost note that shouldn't be there, and so you're getting so picky you forget to see the whole forest of what the album is, and like maybe even how its message will be interpreted. So it becomes sort of abstract to put yourself out of your own head to think about that. So only until the album was mixed and mastered last October and it was done, and I sent it, I was like, here you go, Metal Blade, see you later.
Wow.
Like a month later, might have been the new year actually, I hadn't listened to it. I was like, I don't want to listen to it, I don't want to hear it, I'm done with this thing, right? And then I take some time off and I go and I listen to it, and I'm thinking to myself like, we didn't do a bad job. This is pretty good right now. So there was a moment where I got to accept my hard work for creating something that it did, but it's still hard to hear it and think like it's that great. Yeah.
Are you, a lot of bands I speak to would say like they'll listen to the album once it's done, and then they'll be like, oh man, why did we do that? Or I wish I'd changed something there. Are you that sort of person, Nico?
I am. Yep. I'll listen to the whole thing and I'll be like, oh, I would have done this differently, but that's life. That's life. So.
And so Metal Blade re-released Bear in the Shadows. So you obviously didn't work. Sorry, I say work, like you didn't have a full album process cycle with Metal Blade.
Right.
So you already had Bear in the Shadows recorded, and you just said, look, release it. You released it with 4 instrumental tracks as well. So this time round, how was the process? And I'm always interested to know if there was any, not meddling, but inputs from Metal Blade, or were you just left to your own, and work away?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that when the Bearing of Shadows was being re-released by Metal Blade last year, we were already beginning this new record. We just didn't know, like the scope of it yet. We weren't really sure. It's just kind of in an infancy of compositions and musical ideas. However, as far as the meddling is concerned, I want to let you know that it is very clear to me that Metal Blade doesn't seem to put their fingers in the pie. What they will do is they'll take like a distant advisory approach. They'll say words to the effect of, the music sounds great, what format do you guys want to release it on? And so when I told them I think we should do vinyl, CD, and digital, they said, okay, we have to come up with some ideas then, because if we do vinyl, it's going to be a double vinyl pack, and we're going to give you some information about the pros and cons of that. But we would recommend you do a single for your first release with us, and here's why. And so they kind of advise you on decision making, but they never said anything about the artistry. They never said, oh, this album or this song needs more choruses, or we need more guitar solos. Not once.
That must be such a great relationship. And I think we might have spoken about this before, but Brian Slagle just seems like, he is a metal fan, like I think first and foremost, and then the rest. You mentioned there about the vinyl.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that you had to leave a track off the vinyl or something to that? Or am I right in saying that?
You are. We actually had to cut a whole track, but in total, we had to cut 15 minutes because it's a 44-minute format. You can't fit any more music on there, so it's an hour record. So here, let me give you this. To anybody who listens to the vinyl, please also consider using the download code for Bandcamp and listening to the digital. It's a different experience. It's got a whole narrated section. There's a song that's missing completely from the vinyl, and the end of the record, it goes on for another 3 to 5 minutes of quite a surprise. So that's all missing. Yeah.
Exclusive.
Yeah, in a way, I suppose. Yeah.
Wow. So was that literally because if you'd have had to put it onto another and make it a double vinyl, is that the reasoning behind it?
It was. I had asked Metal Blade, I said, hey, look, like I don't want to really make any compromises to our fans. I want to give them a full experience if I can. And they said, well, we'll do that. If that's what you want, fine. Here's what we're facing. they said it's gonna push back the release date by a lot of time. There is a global logistical issue with paper and dye, and there was like a whole logistics problem during the middle of last year, as you remember. And so like when we were talking about all of that, they were saying this is doable, but here's the result. Your fans are going to have to wait longer. You're going to have to wait longer. It's going to cost twice as much to not just make, but ship. And I was like, oh my God, so many compromises. So we had to make a decision.
And I think that's fair. Like, I think we'd rather have it now than wait another long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the album itself, then, I've heard lots of different stories about what the album's about, but I'd like to hear from yourself, Nico. What is the album about? Because Kardashev is, as a band, very, I mean, you've got the Enlisted Traveler program, the whole Kardashev experience is you know, it's a real like nice place to be. So I want to know, what was the meaning behind the album, and was it a personal sort of journey of yours?
So it wasn't a personal journey of mine lyrically and from like a narrative perspective. This is something that we fabricated as a group. We fostered this idea of having a character right behind you there. We refer to him as the Lost Man, and he is this character that helps facilitate the telling of a story. And that story is very relatable, similar to how we did with the Bearing of Shadows, where we wrote these stories that hopefully most people never have to experience, but they're more likely to experience. Aside from abandoning a child, I mean, you're going to have to go with the passing of a parent. You're going to possibly have to deal with a loved one who dies and leaves you to raise your family, right? Like these are things that some people are going to have to experience. So the same thing was true with this record. We wanted to make it like relatable in a way, and so we wrote this character, the Lost Man, who's experiencing later in life dementia, while also wanting to revisit his earlier memories of his family home. And so Mark kind of designed that narrative, and then our bass player Alex wrote this prose, which is the intro to the album, the narration. He wrote that, and I said, this is awesome. It facilitates a setting. It creates an atmosphere. I said, what if we had that come back a couple of times in the record, and that kind of became the way that we moved the story along? And everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. So it's so cool. Mark wrote the lyrics. Alex wrote the narration. Sean spoke and voiced the narration.
No way.
Yeah, that's his voice, dude. He has a sexy voice, right? Like,
I was going to ask you, who is that, and where do
that's
we
our
find
drummer.
that man? No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, I told him, I said, you got to get into voice acting or something.
Yeah.
But that was the idea. Yeah, is just to kind of make a relatable story that hopefully someone can relate to. That was it.
And the music itself, so from Bearing of Shadows, coming back to that, because that's your last album, to Liminal Rite, for me, it does seem to be in I mean, if we take the album covers, for example, Bearing of Shadows is white with orange on. This one behind is very dark, and at times the music is quite dark. If we're comparing like to like, was that sure. Was that how you were feeling at the time, or was it sort of just fitting the narrative of what you spoke about there?
This is a good question. The narrative did not come before the music. The music usually starts us off, and then the narrative came afterwards. So the music informed the story. And in that way, it was similar to the Bearing of Shadows, but the Bearing of Shadows is more like an isolated group of music that kind of focuses on like smoky atmosphere, whereas Liminal Rite is kind of going back to our 2017 record, The Almanac, and like the sound it had. It's more riffy. It kind of breathes in a different way. So it sort of took on its own presence, and Mark and the guys identified that and said, how do we now deliver a well-written story for the tone? And that's kind of how it worked.
And talking of Mark, which is something that we have to touch on, and not being disrespectful to the rest of the guys in the band, because
of course
I mean, let's be honest, like, I mean, I think, am I right in saying, Nico, last time you'd never met Sean?
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think the first time I saw you two together was in the single or the video, Compass Grave song in the warehouse.
You're correct. That was it. So that was the first on-screen reveal of us being in the same place together. But before that, we all showed up in Tennessee to mix and master the record together.
Sure. Okay. So you've actually met now, which is nice.
I got to hug him. I felt so good. I was like, I know you.
It must be so weird, because, like, I mean, this is going a bit off what I was going to ask you, but like, so Twitch, for example, I know loads of people on Twitch, and I was at Download the weekend, met them in real life, and you feel like you've known each other for years, even though it's all through digital. Like it's so on the one hand, the internet can be a curse. It can be an absolutely horrible place. But on times like that where, you know, you meet people in real life, you just feel like you've known them forever. But anyway, sorry, I digress. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
I mean, I'll come back to Mark in a minute, but I think really as well from musical point of view, like each and every, like from yourself, Sean, Alex, like musically, it sounds absolutely massive. Like, but Mark, and obviously Mark has, I mean, Jesus Christ, like,
I know.
mean, like, I'm glad it's not just me, because when I know he's obviously doing the what's his
Kardashev Academy.
Kardashev Academy,
Yeah.
Obviously, which is great, by the way. If anyone's listening, to check that out on YouTube, it's really good. But my Jesus Christ, he is literally gone. I mean, you're talking that. I mean, I am talking like he is hit an absolute, like, when were you with him in the studio watching him record his vocals?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. One thing that we depend on each other for is I depend on Mark to be my no bars held auditor. He'll sit on the couch right back here while I'm playing riffs and melodies, and he'll say, "Oh, that one sounds like the Star Wars soundtrack," and I'm like, "Damn it!" And so like I try to recreate it, and then he'll say, "Oh, that one's cool, but you should play it trem picked," or like he gives me advice. In the same way for him, I am his engineer. I get rid of any stress he might have of having to record or like no signal flow or anything like that. And I just let him be the artist while I work on the engineering. So we kind of work really well that way. But let me tell you, when we were recording some of those parts on the record, when he gets those really high notes that we're talking, and he's like, nah, 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 and he like gets up there, we had hours. It took hours for us to nail some of those because quite frankly, we're not going to depend on auto-tune because that's not the sound we go for. We might leverage like vocoders to make like an atmospheric sound, but when he was trying to get those moments, he knew that it was all about his performance. He knew whatever it was going to take. We had to like take breaks to go mess around on TikTok because I was like, dude, we need like a 10-minute break. This is too much stress just for me. And so like he really had to push through a lot. He did a ton of work for this record.
I mean, like I said before, like, I mean, this whole album is just, with each and every one of you, it sounds absolutely massive. But Mark really, like, some of those high notes is just, you know, it shouldn't be allowed. You know, it's ridiculous.
I know.
But do you know what? I'm actually delighted that you're saying that you're not relying on auto-tuning, because, you know, that's the integrity of Kardashev, which is something that you hold. And I think Kardashev as a band, that's why, and we spoke about this before we came on, but metal fans are very particular into what they know and they like. And, you know, we're not talking about Beyonce here, sorry, I'm taking a while, I guess. I don't know if she's auto-tuned or not, I don't know. But do you know what I mean? The difference between her. What's your, because I tweeted earlier about Compost Grave being arguably the song of the year. Like, it's that good. And I don't come on and interview bands to blow smoke up their arse. Like, I try and be as you know, neutral as possible, but it's very hard when I have this relationship with Kardashev since we spoke last time. And you know, I feel like, I don't want to sound, you know, lovey-dovey, but I feel like I'm sort of following you grow now, and it's nice. And like, so what, just before, I know you've got another interview coming soon, but I have two more questions. So your favorite song off the album and why?
My favorite song on the album is probably Lavender Calligraphy, and it's because that song is different for me. I transposed an acoustic piece that I use for self-medication, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I just play it when I want to like feel a certain way. I recorded that on electric and then turned it into a song, and then we had to get rid of the first 3 minutes of the song to make it down to an hour. So there's a section of that song that just I have and nobody else does, but you can still appreciate the rest of it. So that's the song for me. Yeah.
That one was the other song that sort of came on. I was like, oh, So, you know, we're sort of like, oh, this is nice. It's a lovely chat.
Thank you.
And so final question, Nico, right?
Sure.
It's been lovely chatting with you, man, as always.
Thank you, Joey. You too.
Are we going to see Kardashev at a live show?
You will probably see us mingling in a crowd, but I don't know if we'll ever be on the stage. The logistics of it, the state of the world, it's a lot to figure out. But to anybody who's listening that knows someone that can help us make that a reality, reach out to me, DM me, send me a tweet, something, and let me get in contact with the right people, because it's a reality that we want. I just don't know if it's feasible.
Man, I mean, it's criminal for you guys not to play this stuff live.
I know. I want to play live. I want to be there, and I want that experience again. I just don't know what to do it. You're
like the dark throne of death gaze. Just not playing live, just releasing albums, and man, it would honestly be unbelievable to see you guys live. And look, I hope it happens. Look, I know you've got to run to another interview, Nico. It's been an absolute blast chatting to you. As always, and I'll be following you on your new YouTube, watching you gaming, and listen, all the success you're going to get off the back of this album you fully deserve. And maybe, I don't know, we'll talk to you in another year's time when you're releasing your next album. Who knows?
I would love that. Joey, thank you for your time. Say hi to Venny for me.
Man, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon, man. Take care of yourself.